5, this is to do still around the annual plan. This is with the Mangere Otahuhu Local Board and Otara Papatohi Local Board's services targeted rate, wanting that to go out for consultation. I'll just ask the officers to come forward. I'll just cover the purpose. The purpose of this item is to consider the recommendation from the Mangere Otahuhu and Otara Papatohi local boards to consult through the annual plan on the proposals to introduce a Mangere Otahuhu local board local services target rate and a Otara Papatohi local board local services target rate to fund the local activities operating expenses in the Mangere Otahuhu and Otara Papatohi local board areas. And we'll get, obviously people have got the paper, Renee, but if you'd like to introduce and just cover any key points for us. I also understand, perhaps once you've done that, we'll open up for questions of you from the councillors and members here, and then we'll understand the local board chairs would like to present to us as well. So I've given them that opportunity after that. Then we'll go into our general questions, councillors. So, yeah, Renee, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Rising operation costs for local board activities have led to a situation where the currently allocated funding under the new funding model is not adequate to cover the costs of the previous planned activities and services for some local boards. In 2025-2026, the governing body provided a one-off extra funding to ease the transition from local boards to the new fair funding model. Workshops were held with the affected outgoing local boards in August and September to show areas where cost reductions and or revenue increase could be considered to balance the budget for 26-27. One of the areas for revenue opportunities presented at these workshops was the local services targeted rate. The current local boards workshopped these areas of cost reductions and revenue increases in early November, and then their local consultation content, including the targeted rates, between the 25th and 27th of November. Local boards resolved on both local consultation content and recommendations for targeted rates at meetings between the 2nd and 4th of December, with the Mangere Otahuhu and Otara Papatohi local boards recommending targeted rates. The introduction of a local targeted rate requires the governing body to agree to consult through the annual plan process. The local boards will continue to consider the 26-27 budget and funding agreements in the first half of 2026, which may identify savings or revenue opportunities that will partly or fully balance their budgets. Additionally, ongoing refinement of budget costs and revenues, including the outcome of the mayoral proposal, may also change the level of funding required to maintain the services. Consulting on a local service targeted rate to provide the full level of funding required to maintain existing services provides the local boards with the flexibility to make the full range of decisions once it's considered feedback from consultation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Right, Renee, thank you very much for that summary. I've just got a mover and second, and then we'll go into any questions for you, which I understand the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor are doing. Yeah, happy to move in second. Okay. And then, did you want to move it out? You can move it out. I thought you were just signalling me to do it.
I had indicated to Councillor Foley if she wanted to move, and then I second in regards to it. But that's up to you, Councillor Foley.
Okay, so who's the mover?
I had indicated that earlier, but...
Are you moving?
Councillor Lotu will... Yep, move in second.
Mover? Seconder. Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, I think that's appropriate. All right, very good. So are there any questions of Renee around the paper? Yep.
Yeah, just the Mangere Otahuhu local board already have a targeted rate for their pool and their leisure centre, don't they? Yes. And
sorry, both Mangere and Otahuhu have targeted rates for aquatic services.
Okay. Obviously, the local board sees this as a better way to proceed in terms of fund local activities. Could we just have a little bit more detail as to what those activities were? I know via Councillor Filipaina how well the other targeted rate has worked in their ward. So could you just give us a few more details about these activities that will actually be funding?
Thank you. The chairs from those boards will be talking to the rates, but we also have Aaron Matic here to help answer any questions relating to the rate as well.
Through the chair. For those who don't know me, my name is Aaron Matic. I'm a policy advisor in the financial policy team. My job at the council is to provide advice on rates and fees and other matters. In regards to the proposals from the local boards, they are generic targeted rates to fund local services in their local board area, and specifically it's to fund, to maintain, or to provide funding to maintain the services in their areas, their respective areas, given the outcome of the fairer funding allocation. It generally funds all their services so that they get the opportunity to make decisions through the process as to how they want to respond to those pressures, or if indeed they need to ultimately when the council does make its decisions next year. The existing targeted rate funds free adult entry for the swimming pools, and that is specific just to that activity. The local boards themselves had the opportunity to consider whether to combine the targeted rates into one or keep them separate. They've both decided to have them as separate for now, so that they can have a clear communication and engagement with the community around what the targeted rates are proposed to fund.
Thank you, Councillor, for your question. Councillor Filipaina? No, okay. Councillor Foley?
Kia ora, thanks, and you answered some of my questions there. I just wanted to ask, so the Mangere o Tahu Local Board, they have chosen to go with a fixed rate, and that's at $47.11 per average household, plus so that's just for the local services, right? And the pool is still separate, the pool rate. How much is the rate for the pools and how much would that be together? Are you able to give us that information?
The existing rates vary between the different local boards, but I think it's around $37, $38 at the moment for the swimming pool entry, and this one would be on top of that. So yes, so it's combined, it's in the $80 mark. Yep.
And percentage-wise, how much, and this is all on top of the 7.9%, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so it's about an extra 2-3%?
It's around it depends on the rates that the current ratepayer pays, but it's around 1.2%. Yeah.
If this might be a question for the chairs, I was going to ask, what's the alternative to the targeted rates? If they don't, because this is in order to meet the shortfall, right? The 1.1 million for Otara Papatoe and 1 million for Mangere o Tahuhu. If they don't put a targeted rate on, what's the alternative for the local boards?
The alternative for the local boards, as mentioned in my introduction, the local boards had workshops where they were given advice on cost cuts to in their area. Some of those included reductions in library hours, reductions in maintenance levels, particularly for bollards in parks. There is also the possibility of charging, for these two boards, charging adults to swim from outside of the local board area, because they're currently subsidising those adults outside their local board area with their other targeted rate. Those were the main things there.
And just last question, we heard today from Tamsin, from the Mayor's office, that we may find a way to cover that $6 million shortfall. If that's the case, will the local board still need this targeted rate, and is there some flexibility around that?
I think that we would have to defer to other colleagues for that. I can see Ross is going to answer that question.
So by consulting, that gives the local board flexibility. So if there are ways to solve it without, the need, or, if there's no risk of cuts, then they don't have to proceed with it. But this gives them the flexibility to, if there is a requirement, to find savings later in the process as part of it. This gives them the option to use the rates lever. If they don't consult on it, they don't have any flexibility.
Kia ora, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your questions. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And sorry, you two, I was just, seeing your plan, I was just going to... my question is, are you sure these are the only local boards wanting a targeted rate?
Thank you for your question. We went to the local boards without any additional funding with these options. So the 7 local boards that don't have any additional funding as part of the fairer funding model in this year. And this option was put to all of those boards. Some of those boards indicated before we went to their business meetings that they weren't interested, and another couple of boards had the report on the agenda also and declined to recommend the targeted rate.
Thank you for that. I just know that my local board was considering a targeted rate, and they probably have no idea, because it's a new term, that they have to get it in and say yes and what for by a certain time. And I'm just conscious that maybe I'd hate to think they could miss out if they don't realise they've missed out, and you haven't gone for all 21, you just asked those set number. So I just wonder, is there any flexibility between now, noting it's horrifically tight time frame, to ask them before we do the consultation document? Was that too late? Have they actually missed the boat?
Kia ora. This specific targeted rate is to cover the cost of current services. I believe you're speaking about the Orake local board. They currently have enough funding to cover their current service levels, so this targeted rate specifically wouldn't apply, but they may want to consider a different targeted rate, and therefore that might go through a longer process to identify what that targeted rate would be for, and Aaron can talk to that.
Yeah,
It was for a different thing. It wasn't for the same targeted rate, but I was basically opening it up to, if a local board wants to do a targeted rate, what's the process and how should they go about it, and do they have to wait for the LTP?
So we constantly work with local boards on queries around targeted rates. I personally go out and give presentations whenever requested to do so. The issue around additional services for targeted rates isn't so much about the targeted rate per se, it's what the board wants to do in terms of its program of works or its projects that it wants to invest in. That usually requires quite a bit of investment and time from the local board to create that program, and it requires some certainty before we get to the targeted rate kind of area. I personally know that ORAC in the last term went out there and we saw them about and had a discussion around targeted rates, but there are also other local boards who are considering it for various other options, and we're more than happy to support them in developing that. But again, the main area which they have to focus on is really what is the additional investment that they want to provide.
Through you, Chair, I just think then that maybe, not now, but in the new year, that we send a notice out and say, look, if you're thinking about it, it's got a bit of a long lead time. Obviously, it's not ready for the annual plan, but if you are thinking about it, please work with staff so that we can be prepared for the LTP. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Thank you for your answers there. Your Worship.
I would like to congratulate Mangere Otahu and Otara Papatahi for paying more attention than the people in Iriki, obviously.
Hey, careful.
But there you go. And I'm pleased that they are asking these questions and not putting their hand out for money, they're just doing something about it. So my question is, when we do our consultation, will we just, or rather I hope, will we be asking the people of Mangere Otahu to consult about their one and the Otara Papatoe about their one, or are we going to invite everybody in the whole district to have an opinion on what should happen in Otara Papatoe and Mangere? Because I think it should be just a local, but I could be wrong. That's my question.
As part of the local consultation content for both of those local boards, there will be specific questions asked to the people who select those boards when replying to their annual budget consultation. So they will be directed at those local board communities, but also anyone who wants to reply to those local board community questions. We also there may be a section in the consultation document that also talks to all the rates, and so there may be a secondary question on that, but I would have to defer to that team when that's been created.
So you're just confirming that the people of somewhere else can't interfere with what the people in those two areas want, is that right?
I might defer to Ross on in that case.
So when it comes to rate, we have to, consult with or make available to all of Auckland anything to do with rates, even like the Rodney drainage rates, which only a very small number of people pay. Anybody can write in if they're interested to make a submission. That's part of the process, but we will target our consultation and engagement on the particular areas. But if anyone who wants to make a submission is able to.
We should make that clear, because I don't think that the people in Rodney's sewage processes are the business of somebody living in Ponsonby or even somebody living in Albany.
Okay. So, we'll obviously get the feedback and we'll put what weighting we want on it, but did you have something to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say to that point, after consultation, this will go back to the local boards for further consideration before it comes back to the governing body. When it does go to those local boards, it will split out whether that feedback is coming from local board residents or outside of a local board when they get the opportunity to make their decision, and that will come through to you ultimately from the local board. So to your point and to Ross's point, because it is a rate, it is something that is a technical change to our funding impact statement, which means that we have to consult on it. But because it's targeted at those local boards, there will be specific questions in the local board material, and there will be that data captured for the local boards when it considers them.
Okay, so in the consultation material, can we make it a bit plain or clear? Because I noticed in going through the local board information about the mayoral proposal, some of them there was 2 or 3 things that didn't actually affect their areas. Quite a lot of the local boards had no opinion on all those things, and some of them had opinions on things which were nowhere near them. So, and I think it's because those people, not because they had opinions, but they felt that they had to put something in the box, because we're becoming such incredible box-ticking humans that you don't feel comfortable if there's nothing in there. We can have a bit here. You don't actually have to fill every bit in. Would be helpful. Thank you.
Hopefully that's helpful. Okay, Councillor Patterson-Hamlin.
Kia ora. Could you elaborate for me what you mean by a generic targeted rate? Because I thought they were antonyms.
Yeah, so a targeted rate can be used to fund an activity or group of activities. In this case, what we're talking about is it generically funds the group of local services activities rather than being used to fund other activities like the regional activities. So specifically, this is to fund local services generally, but in that local board area only. So it gives the local board the flexibility to make those decisions as they come up, rather than tying it to a particular activity, in which case if the cost pressure comes up in a different activity, then they're caught out. So this gives them a degree of flexibility, but it'll also be something that they'll be able to include in their consultation materials each year.
that will be expressed in the consultation material, yeah, that nuance there. Yeah, cool, thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Councillor Turner.
No, my question's been answered. I lost the opportunity to make the point. So the boards don't get, if they have a targeted rate to deliver on their normal maintenance, they don't get any procurement control over that, do they?
Currently, the maintenance contracts are decided by the governing body. There are decisions local boards can make within those contracts, and there is a new contract being set in 2027 as a P27 project, which I believe gives local boards more flexibility to make changes to that contract.
Okay, that's a bit different to how I've learnt at some workshops, but going back to my question, so if a local board puts a targeted rate in place to cover the shortfalls in their area's maintenance, that money really just goes to the pot. And, you know, like, because a targeted rate has to be applied to the target, and it can only be done for the people who pay the targeted rate, correct? So how do we inside, the full facilities program of delivery, how do we determine all that?
If I can maybe try and help. So the process here is that if the local board decides to have a targeted rate such as this to provide local services, that targeted rate must be used for those services in that local board area. So the local board will have governance oversight. It decides on the service outcomes for which it's used. But then the actual decisions around signing procurement contracts or entering into employment agreements, those are management decisions that are done by management with that governance oversight from the local board. So local board directs what the money is used for, but not the nitty-gritty implementation.
But am I correct in my understanding that the problem we've got with the FAIRA funding is that once we introduced it and it was more regimented, we discovered that there was local boards who were already overspending, and that had been covered by the governing body, by our full facilities regional part of the contracts, and there was movement taking place in the funds to sort of just get everything working, and that's when the FAIRA funding came along and tightened that up, and all of a sudden they realised, oh shivers, we've been overspending in this area anyway, and it was getting overlapped with this regional part. So if I'm correct in that, all I'm trying to say is that it seems like we haven't got any processes that can actually make sure this money's going where it's being collected.
So the targeted rate, having a targeted rate, means it's a legal requirement to track where that money goes. It can only be spent in that local board area. In terms of FAIRA funding, I guess the key change is that now everything is local. All of all of those local services, all the community services, parks, community facilities, all the costs are local and under control of local board. That is a change. The cost pressures we're talking about are new pressures that have arisen since the FAIRA funding formula was set. So that's rising maintenance costs, rising electricity costs that have occurred over the last couple of years. So those are new cost pressures that have emerged.
Okay, thank you. I'll be quick to reiterate so we still have this situation though where we have this calculation where if somewhere's got a swimming pool and the two local boards next door don't, and we consider this people are commuting across the boundaries to use that pool, we have this calculation where we share out that funding across the neighbouring boards, correct?
So the FAIRA funding says funding is based off population, so it doesn't look at the assets. It looks at here is your funding based off population. There's a bit of deprivation and land area, and so the issue around multi-board services measure, that's something that we'll look at in terms of a new model going forward for the LTP. But the current FAIRA funding model, the funding is allocated primarily on population, and that creates issues when the cost of running assets goes up.
And traceability problems. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Any further speakers? No further speakers? Well, thank you very much. So what we'll do now is we'll invite the chairs to speak, and we'll have the opportunity to speak to them. I just thought, Walter, since you're online, we might start with you. I understand you haven't got a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation to run us through, but obviously everyone's very keen to hear from you, and welcome, and thank you very much for joining us. So I'll hand it over to you.
Kia ora, Chair. Ngā mihi atu kia koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you, Chair, and members of the committee. I have been listening in, and some of those questions, and appreciate and thank our officers for assisting in trying to present what the proposal that our board is. So appreciate and thank you for the opportunity. So I'm here on behalf of the Māngere Otahu Local Board. To outline our request for consultation on the local services targeted rate. We are proposing this because our board continues to face sustained pressure on funding for our core local services and community programs, and those were some that were highlighted by our officer earlier on with one of the councillors fully in regard to your question. Now, the board has carefully reviewed options and determined that a small targeted rate is the most responsible and transparent way to maintain service levels that our community relies on. We are proposing and we're asking the governing body that we consult on introduction of a local services targeted rate of $47.11 per separate usually or inhabited part per year, excluding zero-rated properties. This would raise approximately $1.05 million directly to support local operating activities in the 26-27 year. One of the questions was asked what are those some activities? We have extensively met with our units, from libraries to parks to all our teams in regards to local services. And what we've found is we are having to target little like library hours or parks or little things like that. So rather than trying to diminish we're struggling as we are at the moment to meet those requirements for our community. So dabbling into more of those to cut those hours, it wasn't viable for our board to do so. And we didn't want to affect our community as it's already been affected over time. But importantly, the existing swimming pool targeted rate will continue to be separate. And we make that clear to our officers that to be transparent and to allow our community to distinguish what the pool's rated is. So this enables funding to help maintain frontline community services that we already had this covered, programs and facilities that our residents constantly tell us they value. Without this additional revenue, we risk service reduction that would have a significant impact in our community, particularly our most vulnerable household. Today, we are simply seeking approval to consult on this proposal as part of the annual plan. Consultation will ensure that our residents have a clear voice in shaping how local services are funded. I am aware that some of the questions were regarding some of the questions, and we will work along with our officers regarding those questions. That's the time that I have to put this proposal and seek your approval, governing body. Thank you for considering this opportunity and welcome for any questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Walter. And thank you for being willing to take some questions. So I'll just ask the room now. Are there some questions? Any questions? Yeah, okay. Well, there are some, Walter, so we'll send them through to you. Councillor Foley.
Yeah, kia ora, and thanks, Chair, for joining us. My question is, I can see that your board has chosen $47.11, so that's the fixed rate per SUIP for all properties. just being mindful that there were other options that would have meant, like, because that rate, when I've looked at the table provided on the papers, that's going to have a higher impact on low-income households. Could you explain why you went with that option and not one of the other options that might have spread it out a little bit more equitably across properties and businesses?
So, through extensive discussion of the board, we landed at that, and we saw that was yes, there were other options, but that option there was will allow us to maintain our services. Again, we seek to consult with our community if they have or say otherwise, and then we're happy to listen. But that's the stance that we as a board, with some of those options, yes, I think, you know, we're in that the environment that our community is struggling, will continue to struggle, but at this point, that is the best option that we have to ensure that our services for our community are maintained at that level that we have currently.
Kia ora, thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Okay, Walter, that's it from this. And again, thank you for joining us. And of course, you're welcome to stay dialed in if you want to hear how the vote goes. Very good. And thank you again. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Kushma, if you'd like to just... Kushma, if you'd like to introduce yourself and present to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Tēnā koutou katoa. My name is Kushma Nair, and I'm the new chair at Otara Papatoe Local Board. First time to be in the local board and first time chair. Yes, basically, I'm here to speak on the recommendations that we have put through as a board for the cost pressures that is also being suffered by Otara Papatoe Local Board. And basically, looking at the options that we had, we believe that fairer funding is there, but it's not fair to the Otara and Papatoe area, because we need about $1.1 million to cover. Now, the options that were put through to us, either we cut services and introduce fees on some services, like pools, and also look at maybe rates, a mixture of everything. But the options that we looked at was, if we cut services and then increase the rates, that would basically bounce back on us, because that's not fair to the people of our area. And as you know, we are in a lower end with our population in Papatoe and Otara, where people are struggling, and that will be something they will not consider favorably. So for fairer, basically, to be fair, we have taken the option of putting a target rate. And we appreciate that the mayor and the councillors have signaled that there may be financial relief to mitigate our pressures. However, we want to keep the flexibility in our increased decision making and get feedback on using our local services target rate to maintain the service levels for the 26-27 plan. Now, there's a lot of challenges we have as a community in Otara and Papatoe. We have services that we have been advised, if we cut services, I mean, we already have a problem with meeting the services. We have to do maintenance around the parks and basically the trees and all that, and also maintenance in our assets, which has been not kept up to date so far, and also rubbish dumping and things like that that's occurring every time around our parks. And also, you know, we have been having community engagements and working with the community to maintain the services and things around the areas. So, looking at what we chose was the minimum figure of $27.17 increase, because that is to put across both the residential and commercial areas, rather than lumping it on to residential dwellings. Because we looked at it that if we go on that path, at least we are able to look at covering the shortfall. And also, because the council does have options for residents where we can postpone rates or we can give rebates. And for the businesses, we can see that they may be able to claim the GST back on the expense. So that way we have decided that, this will be a 0.84 targeted rate for the residents. And in fact, we reluctantly support the proposal on average rate increase of 7.9% for the average value of the residential property. However, we ask for equitable and fair distribution of services for our area, noting that many of our assets are in poor condition relative to other areas. So keeping up with bare maintenance within the existing budget is a challenge. So we want to engage with our communities for them to understand the challenges around the local services. And on that basis, basically we are thankful that we've been given an opportunity to come up here and talk to all the councillors, because we are all into this together, and we believe that our communities need help to be able to, do things better. And that is my recommendation to the budget committee to look into that. And we do want consultation on this from our people, the community, and see what feedback we get. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. So that was a concise presentation, very clear. Thank you for that, and thank you for coming in. Are there some questions? There are some, so Councillor Foley.
Kia ora, thank you, Chair, for being here today in person. As you said, your area and Mangere o Tahu Local Board area are areas of high deprivation, where people are struggling and really facing the cost of living crisis disproportionately more than other parts of the city. So my question is, and it might be just for you to just explain a little bit further, why are you putting a targeted rate on? I know that people around this table don't like to put rates on their communities, which is maybe why the other local boards haven't gone down that route. But if you could just explain a little bit better in terms of the choices that your board had, why you ultimately chose a targeted rate, an extra cost on the residents. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Foley, through the Chair. Basically, looking at, the other options we have, either way, we have to, get consultation on this. But we looked at it, if we lump it to the residents or we cut services, it was not an option to cut services and ask for increase in rates. Or, if we are basically doing both, cutting the rates and asking for them to forego certain services, like, we were talked into about library services being cut. Now, if that happens, that means it's not only about cutting the services of the library, but also the livelihood of certain people in the libraries that do provide an excellent service around the area. So that we sort of was not an option. Plus increasing or putting a rate for swimmers. At the moment, we have got a targeted rate on the pools, so the adults swim free for the area. So if we put a cost on the adults for swimming in the facilities, so that will also be a problem, because we think that they are already paying for it. So how can we ask them to pay another fee? Now, we were considering maybe introducing the fees to out of the area users. And that is something still under consideration. So, but we decided to put this rate in place so that we can work with them, because we had a very little time to basically plan on this because of the requirements. So we said, okay, we will plan the whole amount, but we will look at where we can achieve savings so that we can bring it back. And that's the reason, I mean, we chose the minimum amount rather than lumping it onto the residential ratepayers only. Otherwise, that would have blown up their basically budgets as well by a big margin.
Kia ora, thank you. And if we can find the $6 million to cover that, would you consider then reducing the targeted rate or withdrawing it completely?
Well, I mean, you know, basically, if the thing is, if we get that money to cover, then we may not have the need to put the targeted rate in place. And, you know, that will be something that is basically our fiduciary duty as, you know, elected members of the council to save the people and, you know, make sure that we take care of them. And it is something that we need to consider. And as a responsible people, I think that would be something good, because tough times are tough, as I've said, and not everybody will be happy with increases in the rates and things.
Kia ora. Thanks,
Thank you.
Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question, thank you for the answer. Are there any other questions? No, there aren't. So, Kushma, again, thank you for coming in and presenting
Thank
to us
you.
and for
Thank you,
fielding
Chair.
those questions. Much appreciated. Okay, so if I go back to the substantial now, and we'll just have a look at that, and if there's any comment or debate on it, please. Yep, Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Chair. Look, I just want to say thank you to the local boards who've put their hands up to do this. Well done. From my perspective, if this is by the community leaders, that is something that is what they want. I'm more than happy to support the targeted rates from these both for these local board areas. And I just want to say congratulations to you. Thank you for being bold and to come in and speak to us today. Happy to support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Speaking order is Councillor Filipina, Councillor Gillen. Yep, okay. Alf.
Tēnā koe hea mana, tēnā koutou katoa, and also to the Chair, Māngere Otahuhu Local Board Whakalowhara Yatu, and to the Chair of the Otara Papatoetoe Local Board, Nissan Bulavinaka, Kushma. Chair, I firstly just wanted to acknowledge Renee and Aaron in regards to the work that you have done with both local boards. This was discussed with both Councillor Foley and I with the first meeting we had with the Otara Papatoetoe Local Board in regards to things that they could do to assist in regards to the fairer funding model. Chair, I'm not going to talk that long, and that's because it's going out for consultation. I look forward to the result of that consultation. There were two things I'm going to say. I'm going to say very quickly in regards to you, Councillor Watson, around John, around the targeted rate for the swimming pools. It's been 12 years now. It got put in place in 2013, and it's going really well. I mean, I'm not a rich person, but the homes that I have in Māngere, you know, paying that targeted rate just allows our community to end up free access to the pool. So in regards to that, it's going really well. Councillor Turner, I know you mentioned around people coming from one area to use the swimming pools for free. Just want to let you know that everybody gets scanned, and if they're not from the area, we then send them back home. No, we don't. But yeah, if they come to use the pools for free, so be it. It is what it is. So, Chair, I just really wanted to acknowledge the staff and the two local boards, and also Councillor Foley, because I know that she's been doing a hell of a lot of work with the two local boards, so kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gillen.
Thank you. I'd also like to thank the two chairs for presenting today. And look, my apologies that all local boards actually, but particularly the 7 most adversely affected on the fairer funding, have had to spend so much time and effort, and the staff as well, so much wasted money really in trying to find ways to overcome the amounts that they're missing out on the fairer funding formula. So look, thank you for putting this forward. But I fully expect that you won't actually need to have these targeted rates in the end, because of course we're going to find the $6 million to cover these boards. We probably could have found the 15 million to cover all of them as well. But look, I will be supporting this going through, just on the slim chance that we don't get to that. The slim chance that we can't find it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Foley.
Kia ora, thanks, Chair. I just want to add my voice to commending the local boards o Tara Papatoetoe, Māngere o Tāhuhu, for making this brave choice. And it is a brave choice because people will remember AT did their deprivation index some years ago when I was chair of the local board, and it came out that the o Tara Papatoetoe local board is the area of highest deprivation. Māngere o Tāhuhu local board not far behind. I think Manurewa is second, and then Māngere o Tāhuhu is third. So these are areas that are struggling the most in our city. These are areas for whom the cost of living crisis has existed before the cost of living crisis was a term coined around the whole of this country. And they feel it disproportionately more than other areas, which is why the local boards back in 2013 came to the governing body for the targeted rate for the swimming pools. Because for us, the pools, it's not just a nice to have, it's a really essential facility where if you go there at 5 a.m, you'll see our disabilities community using it for their essential exercises in the morning. You'll see our seniors there as well. You'll see our schools who don't have swimming pools coming there every summer, and it's packed out every summer, our schools using it day in and day out. And you'll see our homeless community as well. We don't need orange in our ward because our swimming pools are purpose-built so that our homeless community have somewhere where they can go that's clean, a beautiful facility where they can have a shower, look after themselves and get some leisure time as well for free. So in that spirit and in that communal way of thinking, I'm not surprised that our local boards, o Tara Papatoetoe, Māngere o Tāhuhu, have again taken this step to find a way through those shortfalls because they do not want to cut essential services to our community. The libraries, for other people, maybe the libraries is a nice place to go, but for our community, especially now post-COVID when everything is done online, we have the lowest uptake of home internet in the country. In o Tara Papatoetoe, Māngere o Tāhuhu. So the library offers an essential service. You'll see our communities there doing their IID stuff, applying for MSD, ordering their medicines, because a lot of doctors now, the waiting times are too long, so you've got to do it all online. And our library assistants are, they have this job now, the scope of their job has expanded so much because a lot of it is helping our community just to navigate everyday life. So I totally understand why the local boards have taken this step. And I know it's not an easy step because it does mean extra costs for our very, struggling communities in o Tara Papatoetoe and Māngere o Tāhuhu. And I wish that we didn't put them in that place. I wish that we didn't put them between a rock and a hard place. Because I know that this is not an easy decision for both local boards. But I know too there are no easy decisions for any of those local boards. If they don't do this, it does mean they have to cut services. It does mean that people will probably lose their jobs. So I'm hopeful that we will find that 6 million, but also hopeful and looking forward to the future conversations about adjusting the model for us going forward, because we just can't keep doing this year in and year out. So I just end off by commending the local boards one more time. Of course, I support this begrudgingly because I wish that we didn't have to have this, but we are where we are, and so I'm happy to second this. Thank you, Chair. Kia ora.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any further comments? If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? I'll declare that carried. Thank you very much. Item, I think it's 4.5 now. Oh, no, 4.6. Oh, I've got them tagged here. Here we go. Okay, list of expectation. So I'll just outline briefly before I introduce this a bit more heavily. Well, when we get to the questions, because we've got a number of CCOs, I'm going to take those questions in chunks. So if you've got questions about any of the CCOs. We'll take questions about the Auckland Future Fund,